Hello, I'm Greg Mehlin, and welcome to Cinema Sit Down, a show where myself and others come together to talk movies. For today's episode, this is our first of the new year, so naturally we're going to be talking about only films that came out last year. I'm joined today by the delightful Cooper Tennant. He will be discussing his 5 favorite films of 2021, and I will be discussing my 5 favorite films of 2021. Cooper, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for the compliment, by the way. You're delightful yourself.
Well, thank you.
I do want to say 2021 was honestly like I wouldn't call it one of the better years I've lived through in terms of film, but I would say it was consistently pretty high. Like there were only 2 or 3 movies I didn't really like. I even like Space Jam 2, not because it was good, but because it was awful. So if you're ready, I'm ready to go ahead and jump into my number
Yes.
5.
Space Jam 2, I mean, it's picking up serious Oscar buzz,
I know for Daffy Duck.
Obviously, and Don Cheadle, of
Oh,
course.
I forgot. Big boy Don Cheadle.
But yeah, I mean, I will also say I wouldn't say that this is one of the stronger years in cinema recently, but I do have 5 films here that I really like a lot. But so let's hear your first pick then.
Okay. Well, my first pick for my number 5 favorite movie of last year was Annette. I only watched it a couple days ago. I went into it expecting absolutely, I won't say nothing, but I had no idea what I was getting into. And right from the beginning, the big musical number where you have the director and like crew and the Sparks Brothers who did all the music and the cast all singing a song about starting the movie. Like it's very surreal in a way. Um, it feels like a stage play the entire time. Like there's a scene on a boat. I leaned over to the person I was watching it with and I was like, I'm pretty sure this is just like a stage and they're using like rear projection for the waves. Like there's, not a lot of like digital effects, that kind of thing. um it's also pretty self-aware, which I really liked. It knows it's a movie, it knows it's like a film. um and it's just really weird. I don't want to, there's one character that shows up that really like kind of freaked me out. And if you've seen the movie, I think you know exactly what I'm talking about. But I mean, Adam Driver kills it in the movie. I really loved the themes and I mean, I can't really get into the themes without spoiling the thing that shows up. But it has a lot to do with like taking control over someone's life for your own benefit and that kind of thing, and not really caring about what's good for them or what's good for you. My only gripe, my only critique with the movie is that I kind of wish it was there was a little bit more. Like it's a long movie, but I kind of wish that there was something more. Like it feels like there's not enough, and not in a good way, because I compared this to like a Charlie Kaufman film where it just kind of ends. There's not really like a story. There's not really like that much of a plot. It's just kind of things happening, and the theme is what you're supposed to take away more from. But I like ambiguous movies. I like movies that don't really like, smack you over the head with whatever it is they're trying to tell. But I wish that this movie might have maybe done a little bit more. But even with that, it's still, number 5. Nothing to blow your nose about.
All right, yeah. So I did not see Annette, but I did see about maybe 15 minutes of it. And I'm not saying I turned it off because I disliked it. I was just busy with other stuff, and I've been meaning to get around to it. I haven't yet, but I have been hearing things in addition to that, and it does seem like a very sort of a interesting thing. It's what I saw was weird, and I'm told it only gets weirder.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I had a friend, they told me a couple months ago that they watched it, and I texted them today and I was like, I watched Annette a couple days ago. Like, what did you think of it? And she was like, oh, I didn't finish it. She was like, I couldn't get past like 15 minutes of the movie. And I was like, why? And she was like, oh, it was way too weird for me. Like I couldn't really get into it. And I was like, you aren't you have not cracked the surface of how weird this movie gets. Like it just keeps going. I do want to say real quick, Simon Helberg, who I only knew from Big Bang Theory, is in this, and he's really good. Like he's like fantastic in this movie, which
I heard that.
he's like
Yeah,
really
and
good.
I was hearing some people saying like, yeah, Wolowitz from Big Bang Theory gave one of my favorite performances of the year, and that's more interesting to me. Like, this has Adam Driver, Marion Cotillard in
Mhm.
it. I'm more interested in Simon Helberg just because I'm thinking, what the hell does he do in this
It's
movie then?
he's
That's
just
so
he's just
great.
good. Like he has a lot of like kind of monologues where he just talks, and he plays a conductor, so a lot of his lines are kind of they kind of flow with, something he's conducting. He's just really good. Like I'd throw him a Oscar nom for supporting actor. I mean, I'd definitely throw Adam Driver a nom for best actor. He kills it in this, like absolutely kills it.
Yeah, Adam Driver kills it in everything he does. And I will say, again, I still need to watch this movie, but I do. What I hear of the music is something, sort of unique. I'm not too into the Sparks Brothers. I know a little bit of their stuff, but they have a very interesting sound, and transferring that to a musical is something cool, because a lot of musicals is same ballads and whatever, but that opening number, like So May We Start, I think it is, like I have not seen all this movie. I have listened to that song multiple times because it's a wonderful number.
Yeah, I will say before we move on, the music overall, it's not as good as some other musicals that maybe came out this year that we might talk about. But there are a couple that are like they're earworms, like they're super catchy. The opening one's really good. Adam Driver has one pretty early on into the movie. He does like a Bo Burnham stand-up routine, which is really strange.
I saw that point. Yeah. Like he starts randomly
weird.
rapping at one point with that's just an Adam Driver. Adam Driver is an inherently funny guy, I feel. And rapping is just hilarious.
Yeah. But I mean, overall, really great movie. I think I'm the audience for this kind of thing, because it's just weird. And I can look past some flaws just for the fact that this was something that was made.
All right. So for my number 5, which is also a movie that's a little bit odd, I went with The Tragedy of Macbeth. This was a Joel Cohen adaptation of Macbeth. I don't need to tell you what Macbeth is, famous Shakespeare story and all that. And it stars Denzel Washington and Frances McDormand. And that I heard those names and I was sold on this movie, and it did not let me down. This is, it's the same classic story that's been told 50 million times, but this was such a wonderful interpretation. I thought it was it's already a dark story, and it felt even darker than usual, maybe because it's beautifully shot in black and white. I think it was the best cinematography of the year, and I don't say that lightly, because I think there was some amazingly shot movies this year, but this, like, just everything about the look and feel of it was so memorable to me, so striking and haunting. And it had this amazing cast, a mix of, movie stars like the 2 leads and upcoming people and whatever, and like theater people who usually don't get this. Like, one person, Catherine Hunter, like I had never heard of her before. She just does stuff over the West End Theater. She was amazing. And it was just, it was the best Shakespeare adaptation that I think I've seen in recent years. And it was not one that will be too easily accessible for a lot of people. Like, I watched it with my mom and dad. My dad said, "This is really well filmed. I don't understand what the hell they're saying." And so he bowed out early on. But, it's Macbeth. It's been told so many times that if it's fine for it to be presented in a way that's not easily accessible, because it's there's other accessible versions. Then this is a different version, and it was one that was just really thrilling to me.
Yeah, this is one that I also missed. I mean, it's still in theaters, so I could still go out and catch it, but
and streaming.
Oh yeah, that's what I was gonna ask actually. Like, do you recommend like going to a theater for this, or do you think watching it at home is just fine?
I did not see it in theaters because I would have to see just how close by it was, because this was a film, it was released late last year, and then just a few days ago they put on streaming, and I could not find it anywhere near me. But I would definitely like it if I could see this in theaters then, because it's just I don't know, it's a very cinematic experience. There's not a dull shot in this movie. There's so many that are just etched into my mind then.
Yeah, I actually I had a friend who went to go see it, and they missed the first 15 minutes, but they still said that it was like one of their favorite movies of the year, just because of how much it grabbed them, even though they missed some of it. I also had some friends who fell asleep during it, but they also still said that they loved it. So I don't know, it must be something about it. I mean, the cast is very enticing, and it's Joel Cohen, right? Or is it Ethan?
Joel Cohen. Ethan was not on this one. He may not be in any in the future.
I think he is done, though. Yeah, but it seems very interesting. Like, I don't know. I mean, I know the Macbeth story. So does this take any like creative liberties other than the casting? But
So I mean, creative liberties. It mostly follows it pretty well. I mean, there's one character in it who's sort of a more minor character in the original play. They beef up that role a bit, transferring some lines or whatever, and it has an ending that is not something entirely original to this version.
Mhm.
I've seen others that do something sort of like this, but it was definitely something on the new side, and it was really good. But I mean, really, with this movie, I mean, like I said, you have Denzel and Frances McDormand. They are two of the best actors of all time. They're given these meaty Shakespeare roles, and they make absolute meals of them. I was just enthralled watching the two of them throughout it. Really excellent work from them. Some of their best work in recent years, I thought.
I might watch that today. I do have Apple TV Plus. I should actually use it. I haven't actually watched anything on it yet. But my next pick for my number 4 spot is a movie that I also didn't watch until like 2 weeks ago, and that is Mitchell's versus the Machines. This was such I think I reviewed it and I called it like adorable or cute or something. But it is also a movie that I had been told all year because I didn't watch it when it first came out, and all my friends did, and everybody told me like, this is your movie, like this movie's made for you, like. And then I finally sat down and watched it, and they were right. Like I mean, they didn't direct this. Michael Renata directed this, but Phil Lord and Chris Miller, like anything they make, I'm gonna watch. Like I'm gonna watch it. I'm probably gonna love it. I don't think they haven't missed a beat yet. And this movie is just like, it's so charming in every way. Like there's some really stylized editing. The humor is so like, it's hilarious, but it's still like it's a fun family movie that's about family. And I have a soft spot for like, parental kid relationships in movies. And this really just hits it on the head. Like you can tell that this movie really came from a place of love, and there's a lot of like truth behind it. My only con is that I feel like some of the creative editing choices kind of get in the way of some of the more dramatic moments. It kind of deflates like the big ending. They do a callback to a joke earlier in the movie, and I felt that was the only point in the movie where I was just kind of like, just let the moment breathe. You don't have to cram something in there. But other than that, I mean, perfect. Like genuinely, like it's maybe one of the better animated movies I've seen. I think Sony Pictures Animation is on a redemption arc right now from Emoji Movie with this and Spider-Verse. Like, can't complain.
Yeah, so I did not see this movie, and I don't know too much about it, but it is on my radar. I do think I'm going to try to check it out in the near future. Again, I know very little, but what I see of it looks very energetic
Oh yeah.
and dynamic. And that's something that Phil Lord and Chris Miller, like you said, they did not direct this, and they didn't direct Spider-Verse, but it's something, and the animated works that they're involved in, they really do
Mhm.
have that like really excellent energy. They first did it in the Lego movie, and they've been doing it since then.
Mhm.
Uh, but yeah, so again, I won't have too much to say about this. I hear it's got like a great cast in
Oh
addition to
yeah.
that and whatever, and I just hear that it's a very fun time. What I did not hear, which I like hearing from you though, is that there's a real heart to it. Besides what's supposed to be, I know, like a jokey, fast-paced sort of adventure thing, and I like to have that balance in movies, especially family one like that.
Oh yeah. It's so much more than just like a funny family movie. Like there's like the main thing is like the daughter's heading off to college, and the father kind of feels like he has a lot of missed opportunity with his daughter, and the daughter is going through like the teenage emotions where it's like, oh, I hate my dad, blah blah blah, blah, that kind of thing. But really smartly, like the movie at the beginning presents you with all these different little hints, all these little threads. And I guess this is just what good movies do. Like I don't know why I'm dissecting it like this, but at the end, all the threads kind of tie together into one piece of string. And it's just like it hits so hard. Like there's little things that happen that in lesser movies would just be throwaway. There would be no emotion behind it or no true meaning. But in this movie, every single little thing matters. Like it's not a kids movie that treats its audience like kids. You know, it treats its audience like adults. Like a kid could watch this and still get a lot out of it, obviously. But me being 21, I can still cry like a baby at the end. You know, like it gets me every time. And there's also, I will say, I relate a lot to the dad. There's a moment at the end where he's looking at like the villain's big bass and he's like, oh, this looks like a Journey album cover. And 5 minutes before that, when they first showed the villain's big bass, I say out loud like, oh, that looks like a Journey album cover. So I can't win, I guess. I can't win.
You're you're just as good as the writing of this movie, it sounds like, Cooper.
I know.
Yeah.
Hire me.
Well, all right. Well, interesting choice. I'm glad that we were able to get some children's entertainment in after we talked about these grisly R-rated mature movies.
Very.
Okay, well, let's get back to another dark film then. My choice for my number 4 favorite movie of the year is Mass. And this is a movie, you may not have heard of it. I don't know.
I haven't.
Okay, well then, time to educate you. This movie is the meeting of 2 pairs of parents. One of them are a pair who their son got killed in a school shooting. The other are the parents of the school shooter. And it's, bring your tissues for this, because this is a dark, sad movie, but it is so powerful. It just takes this very difficult subject from 2 very different points of view, and it just tackles it head on. And I was utterly captivated. I'm going to say the names here. These 4 actors, almost the entire movie is just them talking. Reed Birney, Ann Dowd, Jason Isaacs, Martha Plimpton, all 4 of them are unbelievably stellar. It is one of the best ensembles you will see in any year, I believe. It is all of them working together. There's no true star here. It is such a team effort, just 4 perfect performances, aided by first-time director Fran Kranz. You might know him from like Cabin in the Woods. He was the
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he did this movie. He wrote and
Wow.
directed it, and it is just such a beautiful piece of writing. Then, like, it is. Like I said, this is not something that's easy to talk about. And for like I think that this is the first thing that he's professionally written, and it is so beautiful and heartbreaking. It is a movie that had a small distributor, and that sort of screwed it. It was not getting seen by general audiences. It's not even being picked up by the major awards bodies because it was not marketed well by such a small company. But you absolutely should see this. It is thrilling.
Man, yeah, no, I honestly, I didn't expect either of us to list a movie that the other one hadn't heard of, because I feel like a lot of the big movies this year, if you haven't seen it, you've at least heard of it.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not like an A-list cast or anything like that, but I do really I like
4
Jason Isaacs. Yeah, I do really like Jason Isaacs.
Yeah,
I've always really
great.
liked him. I've been waiting for him to get like a big hit. Hopefully this is it. I'll have to.
This should have been it.
Yeah, is the whole movie just this room? Like your Zoom background is just a room with 4 people in it.
So the movie begins. It's all around one location. It begins not with any of the 4 of them, but it's some like sort of vague talk of like, oh, we've organized this like where they can come here. It's sort of like I think it's like a sort of a church then, where they have this room where these 2 parties have been in contact, and they're finally meeting to discuss this terrible thing that happened years ago. And then once they get together and once they're in that room, then almost the entire movie is in there. And, that may not make it the most interesting film to look at then. There's only so much you can do in a smallish room, but the performances and the writing, it's just, even with that in mind, even when the movie is almost entirely just one long conversation, it never stopped being utterly captivating to me. I loved it.
Yeah, it sounds really interesting. I do like stuff like that. The runtime might turn me off a little bit. I don't know how long it is.
It's not too long. I think it's under 2 hours.
Oh yeah, that's fine with me. I mean, 90 minutes is like, For something
Yeah.
like this, especially, I think 90 minutes would be good, as long as it isn't, it doesn't stick around too long.
You
But
can't drag it out forever. Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
this, I felt like this, it never dragged. It was always just utterly engaging the whole way through.
Yeah, I'm really surprised that there's a movie I haven't heard of that was good enough to be a nomination for you. But
Yeah.
well,
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to
this
surprise.
oh yeah, of course. This next movie is no surprise. It's probably, I'm assuming, also in your top five. I'm speaking, of course, of Tick Tick Boom with the lovely Andrew Garfield.
He is
Um, th-
lovely.
yeah, oh yeah. This one kind of came out of left field for me. I wasn't super into the fact that Lin-Manuel Miranda was directing a movie. Just in general, I haven't seen, I mean, I've seen Hamilton, but I don't think after watching this, at least, I have full faith that he knows what he's doing as a director. I still think he's kind of a weird guy personally. But when it comes to like directing a movie
He's a
and
nice,
understand,
weird guy.
yeah,
Go on.
a nice weird guy, yeah. But when it comes to understanding how to like, you know, direct a movie and lay all your pieces out on the board, like I think he really killed it. Any doubt that I have is kind of gone at this point. I mean, Andrew Garfield kills it. He should. I'll say out of every movie that I saw, I think he's my pick for best actor. Like if I had an award to give him, I would, just in general. Um, but I mean, the music is awesome. Like this is the musical that I was talking about, where every single song, like I could listen to over and over and over again. And I think I don't know how much help Andrew Garfield had in terms of like digital, you know, voice help, anything like that. But he sounds really good. And the way that the music is laid into the movie, it feels more like an actual musical than Annette, which is like a movie with musical elements. Like this is a straight up musical. Um, I don't have enough good things to say about it. My only critique is that I'd like more from the overall story. Like I'd like more of an ending. I mean, I understand that the ending of this movie is literally the beginning of his actual career. Um, and I like that they take a moment at the end to kind of explain what he goes on to do and how he ends up dying before his biggest hit even is released, which is tragic.
Mhm.
Um, and I do feel like maybe showing that would have been like doing all that would have added a lot to the runtime, or you would have had to sacrifice good moments between him and his best friend throughout the movie. But I like that it was a biopic that you can know nothing about Jonathan Larson's like me and go into it and still enjoy it. Like even if this was fiction, I think I would still really, really enjoy it because it is just a good story and it's made really well. And I've got nothing bad to say about it really.
I got nothing bad to say either. Now, this is Cooper. Unfortunately, you are incorrect. This is not in my top five, but it was
Really?
so close. It's so close, and
Wow.
I love that it's in yours because I want to talk about this movie
Go for
because
it.
this was just a delightful film. And like you said, Andrew Garfield, like this man can act. Like,
Hmm.
yeah, I'm so glad that we're like heading into the Andrew Garfield renaissance right here.
Finally.
He
Finally.
always kills it, even in those old Spider-Man movies that weren't good.
Yeah.
He
He
kills it whenever
tries.
he's in it. He killed it on Broadway. He kills it on movies.
Hmm.
He's just an excellent actor, and this is his best cinematic performance. Not his best performance. Angels in America, theatrical piece, wonderful. But in terms of his movies, like he is amazing here, and he can sing. He can
Oh
sing.
yeah.
He had no like real training or anything before this. Lin-Manuel just cast him. He thought like, I think that he can sing, and then to his surprise, yes, he can, and he's really good. And he's playing against like these. What I love is they cast all these like Broadway people in these supporting parts then, who actually are trained singers, and he sounds so great next to them too. And they're all great, especially Ram DeJesus as his best friend Michael,
Oh
who you
yeah.
mentioned. Oh,
He's awesome.
he's wonderful
Hmm.
in this. Also, like it's like you said, it's something where I knew about Jonathan Larson. I was not like a huge expert on him, but this really does draw you in and really get to know this guy, and it really is so sad because he's such a lively, even when he's not likable, he's likable kind
Hmm.
of guy. So smart, and he was so talented, and he was somebody who could have been so enormous, and his life was just tragically cut short then. And I'm glad that more people are going to be learning about him through this movie. And like you said, Lin-Manuel Miranda, like this is his directorial debut, and he did really good. I
Oh
thought,
yeah.
a lot of these people who do not train as directors or whatever, they go into it and they're just kind of, oh, that was all right. But I thought that he had a really good eye here, and there was so much love for this man you could feel in this movie and in this writing and everything. And the way that they were able to transfer songs that he wrote decades ago and
Mhm.
that were already sort of linked to this story, but they kind of did some tinkering around. Like the original version of Tick Tick Boom, well, actually the original version was what they show here, this like sort of almost one-man-ish show that he did,
Mhm.
and then they transferred it and did sort of a story loosely based around him off Broadway. And
Mhm.
then this, like, they changed that then, where this is exactly him. Like, it's not just somebody based off of him. This is Jonathan Larson. It's his story, and it's a delightful one. I've talked a lot. Go on.
No, no, you're good. I mean, you could probably say it better than I have. You know more about the source material, but I mean, honestly, yeah, like this was a movie. Other than my next movie, like not even my number one movie did this to me. But as soon as it ended, I wanted to go back and watch and rewatch it again. Like honestly, I don't know why I didn't because I just watched it on Netflix. But it's 100% something that I know I'll be watching again or showing people just because it is overall just a really solid movie. But you may continue with your next pick.
All right. We could have talked for longer about this movie, but it'll just be the two of us gushing over it. I
Yeah.
think we said what we want to say. Just
Yeah.
excellent picture. My next movie, and let it be known, Andrew Garfield would be my pick for the Oscars, if not for this next film. I'm
Oh.
talking about The Power of the Dog here. This starring the great Benedict Cumberbatch in what I think is his best performance then.
I would
And
agree.
this was again, this is not going to be a movie for everybody. It's sort of a slow burn, which means some people will say it's boring, but it is not. It is the story of this man. He's this overly macho sort of rancher, and Benedict Cumberbatch plays him way against type, and it's sort of his brother sort of marries into this other family and how he adapts to them, and he does not adapt well. He is a pretty all-around terrible guy, but he is so like thrilling to watch. Like, and you get to learn, you get to just keep unraveling about him then in this star turn, and he's just fascinating, really. Like, the more and more you learn, like the better he gets then. Uh, and it's Jane Campion directed this. She has not made a movie in like a decade. Then she's done
I
some
was really
TV work,
surprised by that.
and
Like
she has
I'd never
not.
heard of her, but I'd
Yeah,
never heard of her before. And I went to look at her IMDb and I was surprised that this was her first thing. And like she's been working since like the 80s, which was really surprising.
yeah, I know. And it is keep making more movies, Jane Campion. Keep
Yes.
making them like this, because this is really good. Like, her eye is just so precise, all these little details. She wrote it too, and it's this great character study, not just of the lead character Phil. There's also, so Kirsten Dunst is in this as his sister-in-law. She's excellent, as she always is. But really, who of the supporting cast who catches your eye is Cody Smith McPhee as his new nephew, who is this guy. He's all dainty, and you think he's some weakling, and it is a performance where he tricks you, really, and he's sort of an inverse of the Cumberbatch character, and they have such a wonderful dynamic as their sort of relationship grows. Then it was really just fascinating.
Yeah, I said I went into this. I watched this and Don't Look Up one after the other on a car ride on my phone, which is the best way to watch a movie.
Obviously, David
And
Lynch would tell you.
of course, and I normally lean more towards like the big kind of bigger budget, like really weird kind of funny but serious movies, which
Hmm.
is kind of what Don't Look Up is, except it kind of falls in a lot of points. So
Agreed.
you'd think that I would come out of that enjoying that movie more than this, but this movie really did. This was my number 6. If I wouldn't have watched Annette 2 days ago, this would have been my number 5 movie of the year.
Damn
The
Annette.
cast, the cast really kills it. Like every single person. I'm trying to remember. I went into this thinking because Jesse Plemons is one of my favorite like working actors right now, like coming
Oh,
up,
he's great.
and he's great in this. He was like Netflix for whatever reason has him as like the thumbnail for the movie. I don't know why, because he's in it, but he's not in it a lot. Like I call him a minor supporting character. Like the story really revolves around Benedict Cumberbatch, um, Cody Smith McPhee, and Kristen Dunst. You know,
Yeah.
they're kind of turmoil. But you did hit the nail on the head when you said like it's a very Cody plays a very like he really does mislead you. And there's some revelations that happen in this movie that I think are they could have been done a lot worse than they were. I personally I found it very like respectful, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, and it's not something that like if you know about it going in, it'll spoil it, but you definitely do want to go into this as blind as you can, you know, because
Yeah.
it does surprise you. It does surprise you.
Yeah. And it is, I will say it's a movie because I've watched it twice now. And it's a movie that's even better on rewatch because there's all these sort of you go in, there's so many unknowns with these people. And then as you rewatch, then there's so many different like thoughts going on because there's a lot of uncertainty in these characters and their dynamics and what exactly they want at times then. And the second time that you watch, you'll sort of interpret them differently than you did before. And it's very interesting. It's very creepy with that. It's a movie that's constantly sort of unnerving, even when nothing bad is exactly happening, which I love that. Then it's a horror movie that's not a horror movie, kind of. But it's just a really smart movie that tackles this thrilling character, and it's got some excellent characters on the side too. And yeah, it's good. It's good.
Yeah,
It
all
made my top
around.
three. It's good.
Oh yeah, super good. Um, moving into the top 2. This is you might have a problem with me here.
Yeah, I
Because
expected
earlier
this.
we spoke on air about how Mateus and I really loved this movie, and you did not at all. And I'm
Mhm.
speaking about The French Dispatch, the Wes Anderson's new movie. It's my number
Oh
two.
boy,
It's my number two of the year. Um, what can I say that I already haven't said? You know, I do adore this
that
movie.
it's boring.
No, it's
I'm
not
sorry. Go
boring.
on.
How can
Go
it,
on.
okay? How can it and okay? How can an anthology movie that is moving from place to place be boring? It's got an amazing cast. It's you know, I mean, it's Wes Anderson. Like I said in our review of this movie, like I compare this to The Irishman or Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Like for those directors, that is this movie for Wes Anderson. Like it is, he is unabashedly doing the things that people love him and hate him for. You know, and like I'm not saying that, oh, if you like Wes Anderson, you'll love this movie, because you like Wes Anderson and you're
Yeah.
not a fan of this movie. So
No, I'm not.
and to be fair, I totally get it. Like since we had that talk, I've thought about it, and I would like more of a cohesive story, but I can look past that for the artistry of it. You know, sometimes I am a style over substance kind of guy. There's just too many cool things in this movie for me not to love it. And I think it all just works really well. The cast is great. The comedy is really good as always. It's not my favorite Wes Anderson movie, but it definitely is up there.
Well, Cooper, you say, how can this movie be boring when it's constantly moving back and forth with all these different characters? I'll tell you how, by making them uninteresting and without depth. However, we're talking about our favorite movies of the year, and I understand why you can like this movie. And there are parts of this movie that I do like. And I think part of my dislike of the overall thing is that I feel like there's a lot of potential here that just wasn't fully realized. But you know what? I'm glad that you liked it. I am glad that you liked it. And I will say, I have no complaints for Jeffrey Wright, nor will I ever
Oh,
have complaints for Jeffrey Wright. He is the best part of the movie, and his story is the best of the multiple stories in the movie. So I will give you that. And maybe I'll just focus entirely on him for the rest of the discussion of this so that I can be positive about this movie that you love so much and that I did not love so much.
Jeffrey Wright is he is my favorite actor that's in the movie. He has, I think he has the best performance, and I kind of connected to his character the best. Benicio del Toro just kind of plays a weirdo. Like he kind of plays a weirdo in a lot of movies.
Yeah.
But he's great too. I mean, Owen Wilson rides a bike for a little bit. Bill Murray dies. At the beginning. That's not a spoiler. Come on.
Yeah.
But no, I mean,
the role of his life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, Elizabeth Moss is in it. She's like right there. She's someone I actually wish was in it more. She's in it just like a little bit. I think if she, is in more Wes Anderson properties, I think she could really kill it. Like,
yeah, she's great.
I'm thinking of her in the same sense. I think of like Gwyneth Paltrow, where she was in Royal Tenenbaums, and then I don't think was in another Wes Anderson movie. And she seems, at least in that movie, she seems like she fit like perfectly in with the style. And I think Elizabeth Moss could definitely end up doing that. But I mean, I don't know. Just I'm kind of a sucker for ensemble cast. My number one pick is gonna out me as a fan of ensembles. But I don't know. It gets me. This one's good.
Well, again, we disagree on this movie, but I can see the charm in it all. And like I said, I'm glad you liked it. So for my number two, it's a darker movie than a French Dispatch. I am going with The Father. Now, this was a movie that some people may call it a 2020 film, but it only came out in like some festivals or whatever in 2020 and never released to the public in that year. Instead, it publicly released early in 2021. So you know what? I'm going to call it a 2021 movie, and I want to talk about it because it stars Anthony Hopkins. He is this old man. He's the father of Olivia Colman, and he has a severe case of dementia. And it is Anthony Hopkins, maybe at his very best. It could be better than Silence of the Lambs. I don't know.
Wow.
He is phenomenal here. He is somebody who is not exactly the most likable guy, but he is just utterly fascinating in this movie, and you feel so much for him and his struggles. And the secret weapon of this movie, because I went in thinking like, all right, I figure what this will be. It's a movie about a guy with dementia, but you see it through his eyes, this disease. You're not like you get the perspective of the people who care about him and are worried for him, but you're constantly being thrown for a different loop with how he interprets his surroundings, and you don't know what's right or what's wrong. So you're just as lost as he is, and that really helps you empathize with him. It's Florian Zeller directed and adapted this from the play that he originally did, and I can't wait to see more of what he does. He's doing another movie, which is supposed to be a sort of similar thing called The Sun, coming out
Oh God.
next year. Then
I sense a theme.
so I can't wait for that. But it is a movie that'll break your heart, The Father, but it is so good.
Yeah, I haven't seen The Father. You've recommended it to me a couple times, and I will eventually get around to it. The subject matter is something that I think will absolutely break me down and crush me into like dust. But I will say I think this movie got a bad rap because Anthony Hopkins ended up winning best actor last year instead of Chadwick Boseman, because the whole show seemed like it was styled around Chadwick Boseman winning.
They literally tried to move the final category to being one where they would recognize Chadwick Boseman.
And then Anthony Hopkins won. Like it was the biggest, like, you could hear a pin drop moment or like around the world.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was probably unfairly looked at because of that. And I do think this is a movie that probably deserves a second chance. So, I mean, I haven't seen it, I can't really talk about it too much, but it's something that I think I will watch at some point.
All right. Well, I hope you do. And I will say, so this movie, because there was controversy around it because of that famous win, because, Chadwick Boseman no longer with us. People thought like, oh, obviously he's going to win this as a testament to his great performance and his great career that was struck down in his prime. But, one thing is that was good about the ordeal. First off, I feel Anthony Hopkins deserved his win. I love Chadwick Boseman. Anthony Hopkins was just out of this world in this movie, though. It is thrilling what he does. So powerful, so heartbreaking. And that infamous win, though, got a lot of people to then watch it. And then when they saw it, they were like, all right, I get why he won then. That makes sense because it was so good. So I'm glad that a lot of people then came to appreciate the film and see it who previously wouldn't have if it wasn't for that. And also, I'm glad that it feels most of the intelligent people reacted by saying, what the hell, Academy, you blatantly baited us into thinking you were going to give it to Chadwick Boseman. Like, anybody who hates on Anthony Hopkins then for just giving a good performance, no offense, but they're an idiot, So,
Yeah, I'll agree with you there. It's funny we bring up the Academy last year because the person who had directed the Academy Awards last year actually directed my number one movie of the year. I'm not sure how much blame falls onto him for that final decision, but
some blame, I believe, but
yeah,
go on.
definitely some. Steven Soderbergh directed. Let me pull up the image. No Sudden Move is my favorite movie of the year. And you know what? I don't really know why. Like, I don't really know why this movie that I have not seen any buzz or any kind of like award, like nothing, absolutely nothing. Like, I don't know why it stuck with me as much as it did. It just, like, I don't have any cons for this movie, even though I feel like I should. Like I watched this early on last year. I went into it expecting nothing. I just knew it was a new Steven Soderbergh movie, and I wanted to watch it because it had Don Cheadle, Brendan Fraser, Benicio del Toro, Ray Liotta, Julia Fox. Oh my God, what's his name? David Harbour's in it. Like, the cast was really what drew me, and I kind of really got into the story. Soderbergh shoots it in like a really wide lens the entire time, so like it's almost like the frame's kind of distorted on the edges. Like, I don't know, like this is a movie that doesn't seem like it should be revered for its artistry, but it does seem like someone who he knows what he's doing when it comes to working with a camera. He knows what he's doing when it comes to working with actors. Like, maybe this is like condensed Soderbergh, to be honest with you. Maybe this is like his big, put all of his pieces together moment. I've talked to people who weren't super big fans, and I totally understand why, because other than some good acting, like, the story is the story's cool. Like, I do really like the story. But it just felt like the experience of watching a movie that I didn't really go into with high expectations and leaving it being blown away, that really just set with me. Like, throughout the year, I watched all these amazing movies, and I would, I've on Letterboxd, I have like a best of the year that I'm watching, and I'd be moving movies around, and for whatever reason, I just couldn't bring myself to move No Sudden Move away from number one. Like, it just feels like it has its rightful place at number one, and it's something that, I should probably rewatch to see if my opinions changed at all. But it kind of felt like a roller coaster, and it is really funny. Like, Soderbergh really gives it's a somewhat of a serious topic, and there's a lot of like social issues that are brought up. But it's real comedy. I don't know, like, it doesn't feel like it was written by a comedian. It feels like it was written by a good writer. Like Ed Solomon, who did the new Bill and Ted movie, wrote this, and he kills it. Like, I don't know. I've got nothing to say that's negative about this movie. It's really fun.
All right. So, and I did know of this movie, but like you said, I heard so little about this, but your pitch makes me a bit interested in it. Then I knew it was Steven Soderbergh did a movie, Don Cheadle was in it. That's pretty much it. But you know what? That's good enough to draw me in.
Yeah.
Steven Soderbergh.
Brendan Fraser.
Yeah. Why not? Brendan Fraser, Don Cheadle. That's good enough for me. But he's a great director. So I'd love to see his next film. Then I don't know why this movie, because I've heard it's supposed to be good, but feels like very little talk about it, which is weird given all these big names and this big director involved. So I don't know, but yes, I'm glad to hear you liked it so much. I'm certainly getting more interested in hearing about it.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't even get like a theatrical release. Like, I think it was like HBO Max only, because it was right at the beginning of Warner Brothers deal with HBO Max, and they weren't even putting anything in theater at the time. So I would have liked to see it on a big screen, but I mean, watching it at home with some friends was just as fine. I mean, honestly, it might have improved the experience, because there's a cameo at the end from a celebrity, and as soon as he showed up, the room that I was in was just like, oh my god, that's but I won't spoil it because it is a really fun moment, and it's just kind of strange as well.
All right. All right. Well, so then for my number one movie of the year, I'm going, and anybody who's talked with me will not be too surprised to hear this. I am going with West Side Story. Now, this is a movie, nobody asked for it, nobody needed it, nobody necessarily wanted it, but it is so good. It completely justifies remaking this classic story again, because it is such a fresh, thrilling, just utterly amazing take on it. It is a real update of it. Steven Spielberg has wanted to make this movie for decades, and you can feel how much love he has for this material. It is, I will say, and I do not say this lightly because I love the original film version of West Side Story. It is better than that one, I will
Wow.
say. The updates that they've made to it, all these little tinkering around with it. Like Tony Kushner wrote the script. He's amazing. He brought so much more depth to this story, really brought out character and the developments and their dynamics. And it's so good. And the way that it's shot, the way that it's edited, the costumes, the lighting, everything about it, I don't have any complaints. The cast, which is almost entirely unknowns then, and they are so good. Special shout out to Ariana DeBose and Mike Feist. They are. Oh, I want to see more and more of them after this. It's West Side Story, and West Side Story is great. And this, I believe, is the best I've ever seen it.
Interesting. I've heard nothing but good things about this movie. Like, I think Spielberg's last movie was it Ready Player One?
I can't remember. Maybe.
I know one of his last movies was Ready Player One, at least.
Yeah.
And while I don't love that movie, I like
Yeah.
the vision that Spielberg has for film and like the kind of stuff he could do visually. And watching the first couple trailers for this, you could really like I had never seen West Side Story. I don't know anything about it other than it's like kind of Romeo and Juliet, or it is Romeo and Juliet, or whatever.
It's like an updated Romeo and Juliet sort of,
Yeah,
in the
yeah, yeah.
50s.
But I could tell that Spielberg was approaching this source material with a level of respect. And there's moments in that first trailer where I like actually got chills and almost felt nostalgic for something that I didn't know anything about. And I think that does come down to the artistry behind. I mean, it's Steven Spielberg. Like, what he's not gonna not try. Like even if he makes a May movie, it's not gonna be awful. And I'm very excited to eventually sit down and see this. Would you recommend knowing anything about West Side Story before going into this? Like, should I watch the old one? Should I read anything about it?
Well, so you do not need to know anything about it going in. It makes it very clear from the start what it's all about. I would recommend watching the original because the original is also excellent, even if it is dated in some aspects, which this thankfully updates in ways then that's very tastefully done and whatnot. But for me, part of why I love this is the fact that I love the original, and seeing the alterations that they made and the improvements that they made just brought out the quality even more. But no, you do not need to see it because this stands on its own, and it is Spielberg's best film, I'd say, in many years. I think that it's up there with some of his finest efforts, really. And I don't say that lightly because he's like my favorite filmmaker. But just everything, the choreography, the dancing, I can go on and on about how much I love this movie. There's nothing about it that I don't like.
Wow. When we were getting down to the top couple, I kept trying to think like, what is Greg gonna have as number one? And then as soon as I saw the splash, you said West Side Story, I was like, oh, of course, like duh, of course it's West Side Story, which isn't a knock against you or the movie. I think it almost got swallowed up at the end of the year by everything else that came out. I'm sure it's amazing. Like I really, really do want to watch it. I haven't heard, like when the reviews first started coming out from critics, I was like, of course they're gonna say that the new the new Spielberg movie's good. Like, of course, all this, but then I heard everybody saying it was good. Like, I don't think I've heard an actual negative review for this movie. I couldn't say the same for any other movie on the list. So, you know, I'm sure that is a good pick for movie of the year.
Well, yes, and I'm sure that yours is a good pick too, even if I know very little about it. But it has Don Cheadle, and that's always a
It does
plus.
have Don Cheadle. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, all right, Cooper. I think you said you wanted to add a little bit at the end. Then here?
Yes, 1 minute, because we are running long. 1 minute.
Yes, we are.
Or less than a minute. That's all I really need. I just want to talk about a movie that I watched this year that blew me away. I'm not going to say it's the best movie. It's my number 10 of the year, and honestly, that's maybe a little generous. But this year, James Wan produced a movie called *Malignant*. The cast is they're kind of, I'm not going to say they're nobodies. I'm sure they're in other things. I've never heard of them. I'd never heard of the director. But this movie, it almost teeters on the so bad it's good, but it is actually good. It's a horror movie. It's on. I can't really say anything about it without spoiling it, but there's some insane practical gore like effects. It's a gory movie. It's almost like it almost calls back to like the exploitation movies of you know the 70s and 60s and 80s. But it's very surprising. I wish I had more I could say about it. The main actress, I don't remember her name. She's fantastic in it. If you want like an actual good thing about it, I'm not doing a great job of selling this, but most people that I've shown it to have thought it was really gross and didn't like it that much. But I love it. I personally really love it. I've watched it 3 times at this point, and each time I watch it, I enjoy it more because there's little hints sprinkled throughout. It's one of those that it's a big twist at the end, and you won't see it coming. You won't believe it. It's James Wan too, so like the whole thing is dripping with like style, and I don't know. I loved it. I loved it.
All right, I know next to nothing about *Malignant*, but I'll trust your word. I'll probably check it out at some point then. But thank you so much, Cooper. Great show, even if we probably went way too long on this one. But we got 10 movies to talk about. Sue us.
Yeah.
And I will say then, usually I close out the show by, telling you to watch more episodes of this show and other Pirate TV content. But, you talked about a movie at the tail end, just a little touch. I'm going to talk about 2 movies here. And these, you mentioned *Malignant* borders on so bad it's good, but is actually good. These border on so bad it's good, but are bad.
Oh.
Malcolm and Marie and House of Gucci. I recommend you never see these movies. They are garbage. That is our show. Thank you.
You ended it before I could rebuttal. I haven't seen Malcolm and Marie, but you should. I would say people should watch House of Gucci.
They should not.
It's fun. It's a fun movie.
No, it's not.